this week we have two themes that we're going to cover, and both of them I think are fairly vast in what they're doing, but we need to keep our eye on the big idea. And I'm going to keep going back to those two big ideas, and I hope to end that way, so remind me if I don't, okay? The first theme that we're talking about is about syllables. And this is one of those moments where we're going to be unlearning some of our past practices, both as teachers and as students. First of all, the big ideas in the theme are that syllables in a spoken word have some very minor relevance to spelling patterns. Being able to break words into syllables or to do syllables is not hugely important and shouldn't be something you spend a lot of time on, okay? The other thing is that even though, let's see, the number of spoken syllables in a word can have significance though. So if we know there's one syllable or more than one syllable, we can get some information from that. The division of syllables, the exact division, whether you put a line here or here, it has nothing to do with real spelling, and it can actually really cause confusion, okay? So he has a lot of cautions and worries and all that in his theme. If you want to read those, I won't go into all of them. But syllabication and looking at syllables does do some good things. So the first thing, and I already talked about that, being able to count the syllables is important. Counting syllables helps us check if there are enough vowels in a word. This is probably the most important. It comes back to a chart you've already made, hopefully, about the first law of spelling, the English spelling law, that every syllable of a word must have at least one vowel letter written on it. And the third thing that it can do is counting syllables can help us decide whether or not the Y is a vowel or not, which will have an impact when you start to add suffixes and do things with that, okay? So within the theme, let's see, the first, after we get past all the cautions, the first thing that he teaches, which is really useful, and I was just talking to some resource teachers, so one of the first things is how to count syllables. And it isn't clapping, and it's not what my daughter did last night at dinner, this, to count syllables. It is tapping on your hand, and not just tapping, but tapping with multi-fingers, because at the end of it you end up with how many there are, okay? So as a school, we want to work on that. The other thing is that you don't slow it down. You don't say ca-at, because cat can end up with 3 syllables. You say the word exactly as it should sound, and you catch it. In Melvin's theme, he provides some words that have already got the syllables broken out like that, and so I'm going to put these on a server, and you can use them in an oral exercise to help kids with the tapping being so important. The other thing he said is if you have somebody that's having trouble with it, and I always think of like Mr. Holland's Opus. Do you remember the kid that he was beating on with the helmet on? If this is challenging for one of your kids, he says that you should do the tapping on their hand so they can feel it, and then have them tap with you. Again, though, this isn't something that you're going to spend, ages and ages mastering with some kids. This is a tool that we want to get down so that we can use it for something else. Okay. There are 2 terms that are important in this theme for most students. I guess you could argue that maybe not in first grade, but monosyllable means one, and polysyllable means more than one. And that's kind of where we want to go. Do we care if it has 4 syllables? Well, we do if we're counting to make sure it has enough vowels, but really from a division and do you have 4 or not, it's not that important. In fact, this whole theme has brought up some personal spelling issues that I remember as a child. There was a stupid worksheet where I had to divide them and put a number, and I kept getting it wrong. And it was like, and she's looking at the answer key saying there's 4, and I'm getting 3, and it was just so murky because when I was saying it, I was getting 3. So I think it's good that we're taking ourselves out of this as a spelling theme, sort of. The last thing is to ask whether or not the Y in a word is a vowel, and determining the number of syllables can help you with that. This relates to that first law of English spelling, and I think this is going to end up being something really important to come back to when we're adding suffixes or vowel suffixes or doing any kind of attachment to words. So he gives 2 examples to work with kids on. The first is my, so if you will please, my has 1 syllable, my. So the Y there, being the only vowel in the word, must be acting as a vowel Y and not a consonant Y. Another example would be copy, copy, 2 syllables, 2 vowels, but 2 syllables, so the Y is still a vowel there. You can test those out with these other words with your kids. Okay? Oh, sorry, and no, these words here. These are also on the thing. This one, rainy, I thought was fantastic because not only does it have the Y, but it has 2 syllables there in that, 2 vowels in that first syllable. So you can talk about how this law says at least 1 within the syllable, and that these are working as a pair. It can reinforce some of that digraph stuff. Okay, I'm moving quickly, but the next thing that we have is a bit of